Hello everyone, how are you? I see a few of you have joined. Good to see you. Okay, I see Rahul has joined and Mansha is there, Madhusudan is there. Madhusudan, everything is uploaded. You can upload it from the portal itself. Christy is there. Good. All right, Shami. I see Khushi, I see Anushka. We'll just wait for 30 seconds and then we'll continue. Good. I'm good. Thanks, Sakshi. Thanks for asking. So any doubts, any questions so far in any of the chapters? We'll talk about that for another 1 minute and then we'll jump on to continue with chapter 7. And then we'll also try to cover major part of chapter 8 today, right? Because my idea is that we'll cover majority of the syllabus today itself. And the next session, which would be, I think, the last session for us, I will want to cover the entire syllabus revision for 40-45 minutes. Another 1 hour with full-length exam questions, the examination questions we'll discuss. And the last 15-20 minutes, another 30 minutes on examination tips and how to study or any concept clarity that you want me to repeat. So that is what I want to cover in the last session. That is after today's session. But today we'll cover chapter 7, another 15 minutes, and then we'll jump on to chapter 8, right? I'm good. Thanks, Krishna. Thank you. You can please refer what we have studied. I think I gave examples as well for that. If there is any doubt in terms of last session, why is that happening or why is that so, I will be happy to cover that. However, given the paucity of time, repeating an entire concept would be difficult. But if we have time in the end, we'll do that, right? We'll cover the entire syllabus revision in the next session. I think we should jump on to continue with chapter 7, where we left off last time, right? Where we left off last time, and that was at effective leadership, right? And today we're going to start with understanding corporate culture. Okay? Today we are going to understand what is corporate culture, right? Simple. If I talk to you, what is the culture of India, right? Give me certain examples, give me certain adjectives that come to your mind when I say, what is the culture of India as compared to a Western country, right? Tell me what is the culture of India as compared to a Western country. That's great, Mansha, if you're solving the independent MCQs that we uploaded. Okay, Shrishti says unity in diversity. That is one. That is about culture. What else? What else is the culture of India in relation to the culture of Western countries, right? What is the culture of India? Give me certain more adjectives or certain things that come to your mind when I talk about culture of India. What comes to your mind? Respect of elders. Okay. What else? What else? Why aren't others writing? I want others also to answer. Rich culture, a diverse culture, more inclined towards divinity, right? Or you wanted to say unity, or divinity means more religious people, right? That is what the culture of India is. That people are very religious. Okay. Now, exactly, that is what we are talking about. Culture of India is inclined towards respect of elders. It's inclined towards unity in diversity. People with different religions, different thought processes reside in a country and they live happily in a country. That is what a culture is. Now, when I talk about a corporate culture, right? When I talk about a corporate culture, that is the exact same thing that is happening in the company, right? It is the company's values, company's beliefs, the business principles that they work on, right? The traditions, the ways of operating, how they function, and the internal work environment. That do people respect the leadership, or people are not respecting the leaders who are elder in terms of designation, what is the culture, right? That management preaches and practices. Plus, this is what a culture is. In addition to that, what management preaches and practices, how the leaders are. Do leaders involve people, or leaders are very arrogant, or leaders are very inclusive, leaders are very helpful, or they're helping in nature, right? Or they're easy to talk to, they're approachable. How is the management with their employees? And how is the overall value system, the business principle of the business? That is what a corporate culture is. Similarly, like India, that great ones like fundamental rights, Atithi Devo Bhava, right? Values, culture, socialism, including everyone, understanding everyone. That is what a culture is. Similarly, that is what a corporate culture is. The values, the beliefs, the business principles, the traditions, how things are done in that business, what is the internal work environment, right? Plus, what the management preaches and practices. Similarly, in India, how the leaders are, how the politicians are in terms of unity, in terms of religions, that really defines how the country is. Right? That is what is projected to the outer world, that how a particular country is. Similarly, for a company. Now, why are we even talking about culture when we are talking about strategy? The question that should come to your mind is, why are we even talking about culture when we are talking about strategy? One of the I would say the most important thing is to understand, because a strategy can only be ensured if the people understand why is that strategy actually being implemented or thought of for the organization, right? An organization's culture is either important contributor or an obstacle to successful strategy execution. It can either contribute to a strategy successful implementation, success of the strategy, or it can either become an obstacle, right? Now, strong culture, now this is what you have to understand. This is what you have to understand. A strong culture promotes good strategy execution. Why? Because there's a fit and impedes execution when there's negligible fit, right? That means, because if let us suppose the strategy is of that where a lot of people have to involve in a particular execution, right? Now, let us suppose I am implementing a strategy in the organization which would require all the employees to be innovative, right? If I am implementing a strategy wherein all the employees in the organization have to be innovative, but the culture of the organization is that only the senior most people take decisions. No one else is allowed to take any decisions. Now, there's a conflict. The culture is that only the senior most people take decisions, while the strategy I'm trying to implement is wherein everyone has to take decisions. Now, the culture and the strategy are not matching. That is why it is so important. When you're thinking of a strategy or executing a strategy, your culture should align with how your strategy is. Your strategy should align with how your organizational culture is, right? That is why it is so important. And that is why we are talking about corporate culture when we are talking about strategy. Okay. Great. Right. So that's a good statement, that a lot of times decisions take on sentimental values, but that is where culture comes into picture. Because if there's a culture, if the organization is a lot sentimental in culture, the decisions will be sentimental. But if the organization's culture is very practical, they only think about practical, rational, logical things, then that is how the strategy will also be, right? So thanks, Ankit. That's good to know. That's good to know. Right. Now, the perils of strategy culture conflict. Just like I told you, if the strategy is not matching with your corporate culture, if the kind of strategy you want to implement is not matching with your culture, with your corporate culture, what will happen? What will happen is you will go out of sync, right? You will go out of sync strategy conflict. And that means revamping your strategy to produce natural or cultural fit. A lot of times, if the question comes, if there is a difference between the culture and the strategy, what would you change? Let me ask you people. I just given the example. If there is a conflict between the strategy and the corporate culture, which of the two would you want to change? Will you change the corporate culture or will you change your strategy? What will you do? If there is a conflict between the corporate culture and there is a conflict between this culture and the strategy, which of the two would you change? Would you change the strategy or would you change the culture itself? Shristi says you would change the culture. Okay. What about others? What do you think? Let us see who has what thoughts. That's right, Mancha. During COVID, your actual test of organization's culture came into picture, right? But the question is different, Mancha. You're going off topic. My question is simple. What will you change if there is a conflict? You would change strategy. Christy says strategy, Riya says strategy, Anushka says culture. Okay. There's a mix of thoughts. I'll wait for another 3-4 responses. But that's a wonderful answer, Christy. You say depends, right? I don't think in examination you'll get something like depends. Because if you get something like depends, I think there's no point of examination. But good that you're thinking. Okay. Chena says we will change strategy to align with culture, which is a strategy. Nishma says strategy. Okay, Deepak says usually there is a change in strategy as culture is which the management is based on. Absolutely. Now, the answer is you would change the strategy. You will not change the culture, you will change the strategy. Now, I'll ask you a question, why? Okay. Now, I'll ask you a simple question. Now, look at this example, okay? Now, you are a vegetarian, okay? Now, let us suppose your value system, your belief system says that you should not eat non-vegetarian food items, okay? Let us suppose you're vegetarian. Now, if you think you're vegetarian, would you as a leader, right? Let us suppose, now would you change the strategy of not eating like probably you're starting a restaurant, okay? Now you are starting a restaurant, you're a vegetarian. Now what would your cultural system, would you change your culture or would you revamp your strategy? Right? The thing here is, it is very difficult or it is nearly impossible to change your value systems, right? However, you can change your organizational culture, but it is very difficult. It is very difficult. It requires a lot of effort. While it is easier to change a strategy, right? Now, it is easier to change a strategy in comparison to your culture. So when there's a conflict between your culture and strategy, you will change your strategy, right? That is simple because strategy is relatively easier to change than changing the entire culture, right? You cannot, let us suppose you live in West Bengal. Okay? Now, let us suppose you live in West Bengal and the culture that is there in West Bengal, your strategies will be according to the culture of that place. You live in Maharashtra, you start a business in Maharashtra. The culture out there, people buying fruits from the vendors and not buying online, that is the culture there. People are more connected to vendors. You will change the strategy, you will not go and change their culture. And similarly, for an organization, you will change your strategy, you will not change your culture, right? Okay. Now we are jumping on to the next topic. That is something we talked about. Culture is, it is about the value system, the thought process, how things happen in an organization, how things are done in an organization, plus what the management thinks, what the management wants to do, how the management looks after a business is what a corporate culture is, right? If there is a conflict between your corporate culture and a strategy, you would change the strategy, right? That is something simple around corporate culture. Now, what is entrepreneurship? And this is the word we have been hearing a lot. Entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is a very simple concept, very simple concept. It says initiating a new concept or a business idea, recognition of business opportunity, facing risks and uncertainties, taking that risk, arranging and coordinating resources like money, like land, labor, and money, right? Infusing capital, technology, human talent, and doing all of this by creating a profitable or not so profitable or just a business around that particular idea, right? Initiating a new concept, recognizing an opportunity, facing the risk and uncertainties, arranging and coordinating resources for that particular idea, for that particular business. And that is called entrepreneurship. And they're taking all the risks. They're taking all the risks. They're recognizing an opportunity that is there in the market. They're initiating, they're taking actions to build upon that idea, that opportunity, and they're arranging and coordinating resources like money, land, technology, human capital. And they're giving a shape to that particular idea, like Flipkart, like Amazon, like Cred, like Zomato, like Oyo Rooms. Right? These are all entrepreneurial, I would say, ventures, right? Wherein they found an opportunity, they created an idea, they were facing risk whether they'll be successful or not. They arranged money, people who came along to work with them. They innovated technology. They used a lot of funds, and they're shaping that idea. That is what entrepreneurship is. That is what entrepreneurship. It really involves a lot of risk, but more the risk, more the reward, right? Absolutely, absolutely. Any good examples of entrepreneurships? I would really want to hear some new examples of some new entrepreneurial activity that is happening in the country or in the world. Any entrepreneurial activity you're aware of that is happening. Let us see if someone has some interesting names that even I don't know. Would be happy to hear that. Maja, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Your statement is coming up in next chapter. Any examples? I don't see any examples so far. Why is that so? Are you guys Googling? Okay. Ria says boat. That is a great example. The earphones, boat, right? Your headphones, earphones, your music, small portable music speakers. That's a great example, boat. What else? Biz Gurukul. Okay, but I wasn't aware of that. Biz Gurukul. Okay, Wow Cosmetics, right? That's a new entrepreneurial activity that is happening, right? I mean that's probably you're talking about Elon Musk, right? But that is probably very famous. I'm asking something new that why Wow Cosmetics, or probably if you watch a lot of YouTube, you will see this new company advertising a lot, right? What is that milk company that is advertising so much on YouTube? Then you have BillDesk, okay, WakeFit, absolutely. WakeFit, I think, is John Abraham's brand. I think so. I'm not very sure. Delivery, okay. Then new COVID vaccine. Now that is not entrepreneurial, I think. That is probably well-established firms are producing that. That is innovation. That is not entrepreneurial. Okay, great example like Delivery, WakeFit, BillDesk, EcoBricks, Dunzo is a good example, right? Fool making incense 6-1 based flowers. Okay, that's a great one. I've heard of it, right? Let us move on to understand like great examples there. That speaks that you know what entrepreneurship is. You giving these examples makes me aware that you are aware of what entrepreneurship is. Now let us understand a different concept, which is intrapreneur, right? What is intrapreneur? Without entrepreneur, we know. What is intrapreneur? An intrapreneur is nothing but an entrepreneur who operates within the boundaries of an organization. Very important concept. Very important concept. Okay. Now, every company is finding candidates who are entrepreneurs, Companies love to hire individuals who are entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who operate within the boundaries of the organization. Okay. They discover new ideas. They look for opportunities that can benefit the whole organization and take risks, promote innovation to improve the performance and profitability of the organization, right? Entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who do exactly the same thing what an entrepreneur does, but for the organization as an employee. For the organization as an employee. They are an entrepreneur, salaried entrepreneur, if I can say. Entrepreneurs are salaried entrepreneurs who are working within the organization, maybe a CFO, maybe a CEO, maybe a general manager, right? Maybe a functional manager. It can be anyone. It can be anyone at any level, right? And they look for new ideas, new opportunities, innovation, taking the risk, finding something new, improving the performance, right? Just as what entrepreneurs do. Just as what entrepreneurs do. It has now become a trend, right? It has now become a trend that large corporations appoint entrepreneurs within the organization. That is what I said. Companies love to hire entrepreneurs, right? They love to fire entrepreneurs because they are adding value to the organization. They're adding value to the entire process, to the entire organization in terms of innovation, new technology, taking risks, bringing something new to the table, right? That is what entrepreneur is. Working within the organization as an entrepreneur. Any doubts so far? Any doubts so far? Sundar Pichai as an intrapreneur of Google. Probably we can say that. Absolutely, absolutely. Right? Sundar Pichai or Tim Cook, like all these CEOs are actually paid to work as entrepreneurs for the organization. Right? Absolutely, good example. But Sundar Pichai is a good example. Misho is a good example. HRX is also a good example of entrepreneur, BlaBlaCar. Great. I think you guys are well aware of what is happening around you. So good. But any doubts so far on any concepts? Great, that helps you. I would really appreciate giving a thumbs up or an all clear. That helps that we can move forward. Perfect. Much I did not get your question. That's not a complete question. So can you please rephrase? Meanwhile, we will move on, and that actually ends our chapter 7. Probably, I would just congratulate you that you have completed 7 chapters of strategic management. Right. So kudos to you that you have completed 7 chapters of strategic management. Right. 90% of your study material is complete. Okay. Right. She is Salman Khan's Fresh, a Salman Bhai. The Fresh is something else. Fresh works. That is something new that's going on in the world. Right. Great. If it's clear, I'm happy that it's clear because we have completed 7 chapters now, and we jump on very quickly to chapter number 8. Because chapter number 8 talks a lot about whatever we have done, how do you control that? Right? Oh, absolutely, that's great. That's a good statement, that entrepreneur is actually bridging the gap between the people who have knowledge and who possess surplus funds. Probably yes, I would say probably yes, not in the true sense, but that statement holds good. Okay, now let us move on quickly to chapter number 8. Right? Chapter number 8 is about strategy implementation. Now you need to be very clear on these words. We're talking about implementation, right? We're talking about implementation and control. We'll be covering two things here. We understood all about strategy, what an organization is, how do you analyze, what are the different strategies at corporate level, business level, your functional level, right? What kind of leadership is needed? What are different organization structures? What is entrepreneurship? What is entrepreneurship, right? What is the kind of leadership need in what kind of a strategy? Now, we will understand that we have ideated the entire thing. What is a strategy? How does it function? What is the kind of strategy? What is suitable to me? What is suitable to what kind of an organization? But how do you implement and how do you control that? How do you implement what you have thought of and how do you control? That means, control means keep a check on, right? How do you check that what you have done or what you have selected as a strategy is the right thing for you and it is happening how you ideated or how you thought of? Okay, this is what chapter number 8 is all about. This is chapter number 7 summary. I think we'll cover that in the next session in depth again. Let us jump on to chapter 8 overview. What are the few things that we are going to study today? What are the few things that we will study today, right? This is important. This is important. Okay. So we'll cover the concepts of strategy implementation and control, wherein we'll talk about relationship or interrelationship between strategy formulation and implementation, right? I can formulate a strategy. I can think of a strategy, but how do I implement it? So why is it so important to implement? And how can I implement it? What are the steps to implement a strategy? We'll talk about strategic change. We'll talk about strategic control. Like probably strategic change is if your strategy is not being implemented in the right direction or you think your strategy is failing, you will have to change your strategy. How do you change your strategy is what we'll study. Strategic control we'll study. We'll understand strategy audit. How do you audit your strategy? That what is done is actually the right thing or not. Then we understand a very important concept of BPR, which is business process re-engineering, right? Business process re-engineering. This is a beautiful concept we'll study. And then we will study a very important concept called benchmarking. Benchmarking, I will give you a word. When we do this, you tell me this word again. It is called Sharma Ji Ka Beta. Okay, remember this. I'll give you an example by, right? Or beta or beti, whatever. Gender neutral. Just remember when we do benchmarking, just tell me that I have to tell you why I said this, right? Just tell me why I said this. Okay, let us jump on to chapter number 8. First topic that we will cover is strategy implementation. The first topic that we will cover today is called strategy implementation, right? Now, it needs to be emphasized that strategy is not synonymous with long-term plan, right? Right? What is this? Strategy is not just, it is not just a long-term plan. But what is it? It is attempts to reach some preferred future state by adapting, underline the word, understand the word, its competitive position as circumstances change. Okay. Now, strategy implementation is important because you need to understand that strategy is not just one-time fixated long-term plan. It is a plan which involves a lot of attempts that keep on changing with changes in the environment, which keep on changing with change in the environment, right? And adapting to those changes while it wants to reach a future state of profitability, of increased market share. We studied this. Why strategy is important, right? Increased market share, increased profitability, better standing, competitive advantage, core competency. We have done that. And that is what strategy implementation is all about, right? See, you might do something, but your competitors will also respond, okay? You might do something, you might implement a strategy, but then your competitors will also do something to fight off, will fight you or your strategy, and then you change your strategy again. That is also what strategy implementation talks about. That is also what strategy implementation talks about, is that as and when your competitors change their strategy based on your decisions, based on your strategy, that also forms part of your strategy implementation. That also forms part of your strategy implementation, right? Great. My network is probably good, Manan. You will have to check your side. I see. Great. Organization success is function. I'm pretty sure you're getting something from study material, or probably that's a fair statement, right? Okay. Do you understand strategy implementation? Right. This is more around that you keep changing it. You keep adapting to as the changes come in the environment. You keep adapting your plans, which is a simple common sense. You are going to, let us suppose you are going from your house to the playground, right? You're going to play football. Now, in the way you see, your plan is that I'll go by road number A, right? Your plan is I'll go by road number A. But once you reach the T point, you see that the road is under construction. So you take a turn and you go from road number B. But your plan was to go by road number A. Why did you change your way? You have to reach the playground. That is your future goal. But you changed your way because of the circumstances. Because the circumstances changed. Wherein the road was blocked. You cannot do anything. So you changed your way. Still you will reach the playground. Right? Now you change your way and everything. That is what a strategy is all about. Right? Now, the point is, it's a managerial exercise. You see, I've underlined this word. Why have I underlined this word is strategy implementation is a managerial exercise. It is done by managers. It is not done by general employees. It is done by managers. Because it involves translating strategic decisions into actions, right? The decisions which have been taken by the leaders, by the corporate leaders, your managers are converting those into actions, and employees are actually doing that action. But managers are ensuring that the decisions taken at the corporate level are converted into actions. And that is strategy implementation. Right? Now, implementation requires supervision. Because it's a managerial activity, it involves supervision. Managers supervise the work and they ensure that what is required is done in the right way. Right? Now, as strategy implementation involves two kinds of supervision. First is the allocation of resources undertaken in the right way, right? There is effective use of all the resources. There is sustainable use of all the resources. So first thing that the managers have to supervise in strategy implementation is allocation of resources. Number two is adapting organizational structure to handle new activities, training personnel, and devising appropriate systems. Now, when you're implementing a strategy as a manager, you have to ensure that the organization's structure is maintained, and the decisions that you take, the things that you do, the processes that you create are aligned with the organization's structure. Right? Probably I'll give you an example. Now let us suppose you are a manager of the truck division. Like we talked about matrix structure. When we're talking about matrix structure, we talked about truck division, car division, etc. Right? Now, you are the manager of truck division, and you have to find out a way to increase the number of trucks that are produced. Okay. Now you have to find out a way to increase the number of products that are produced. Now, what will you do? you cannot go out of the structure, right? You cannot just go to someone in car production and tell them, boss, help me, come to the truck. Can we check from the technical team that do we have a problem? I think the internet is okay on my side. आप देखिए एक बारी. Sure. Is the video visible now? Okay, perfect. If now it's fine, then it's good. All right. Good that it's back. So I'll just repeat what we were doing, right? So we were talking about implementation requires supervision. Implementation of strategy requires supervision, and supervision of two things in specific. That is allocation of resources and adapting the organization's structure. Your implementation strategy should involve supervision of allocation of resources, and that your plans and the way you execute is in line with the organization's structure. Simple, right? We'll move on to the next topic here, which is strategy implementation and strategy formulation, the relation between the two, right? What is the relationship between implementation and the formulation? Okay. Now, there is no such thing as successful strategic design. There is no concept of successful strategic design. A company strategy is only successful when the strategy formulation is sound and the strategy implementation is proper, right? When I say sound means logical, right? Strategy formulation is logical and the implementation is proper. Proper means as planned, okay? You can write it down somewhere to understand this. Okay, great. Strategy is successful. There is no concept called, if someone says, I have a very successful strategic design, just tell them, boss, there is no such concept. The concept is simple, that your strategy formulation should be sound, it should be logical, and your implementation should be proper. That means it should be as you planned. Okay. Now, what does logical mean? Now, if I give you an example, right, wherein I say my strategy is to sell 10,000 pieces of furniture in a month. Okay. Now, my strategy is to sell 10,000 pieces of furniture in a month, and I can only produce 8,000 pieces in a month. The strategy ideation is illogical, right? I can only produce 8,000. My capacity, my advertisement team, my sales team, my production team, my finance team, all the functions tell me that I can only make 8,000 pieces. And my strategy is that my vision and mission is I want to sell 10,000 pieces in a month. It is illogical. It will not be a successful strategy, right? So your strategy formulation should be logical. It should be logical. When is it logical? When you have proper analysis, like we did in chapter number 2, when you do a SWOT analysis, when you do a TOWS analysis, when you do an ADL matrix, when you do a BCG matrix, when you do a green light or red light or a yellow light kind of a strategy, and then you ensure that whatever you planned is done as you planned. That is strategy implementation. Whatever you do is done as planned. Okay, that is what is also important. Great. Now let us understand this in detail. look at this matrix. Okay, now look at this matrix. Again, you know how to read this. This is how you read this, right? This is how you read this. You go right and you go down, right? Now, you go right and you go down. First and foremost, my question to you is, from this graph, I will just clear this up and then I'll ask you a question to see if you understand this or not. Now my question to you is, if my strategy formulation is very logical, but my strategy implementation is weak, what kind of a column would I be in? I would be in A, B, C, or D. My strategy formulation is very logical, but my strategy implementation is very weak. It is not proper. What is the column that I will be in? Okay, I have an answer from Kamal. Let us see what about others. Strategy formulation is very logical, but my implementation is weak. We'll understand that. Sarthak, we'll come to that. That's a great question. If you're asking, you are interested to know, we'll talk about that just in 1 minute. Okay. So majority of you say that we will be in column number A. Absolutely right. Your strategy is sound, but your implementation is weak. The strategy is sound, but your implementation is weak. So you are in column number A, right? Similarly, if your strategy is flawed, that means it is not logical, but your implementation is excellent. Your strategy is illogical, but you're still implementing it with the utmost efficiency, with utmost effectiveness, with utmost passion. You will be in column number D, right? Now, what to do if I'm in column number A? What should I do if I'm column number B? What should I do in column number C? What should I do if I'm column number D? Okay. Now, simple. If you are in column number A, you need to try move to column number B, wherein you improve your implementation. If you are in column number A, you should try to move to column number B, right? You should try improving your implementation, right? Because your strategy is already very logical. So why not move from A to B? B is where success is. So you should move from A to B. What if you're in B? If you are in B, that means your strategy is logical, your implementation is also excellent, wonderful. You will be successful. If you're in column C, where your strategy is flawed, is illogical, even your implementation is weak, you need to redesign and everything. You need to redesign your strategy, you need to redesign your implementation. Everything is in the bad shape. You need to change everything. If you are in column number D, right? Column number D means that your strategy is illogical, but your implementation is excellent. What will you do? You will redesign your strategy and then readjust execution skills. You will have to redesign your strategy because the strategy is the problem here. You will redesign that and you will move to a better place because you're already executing it with an excellence, right? Is it simple? Now the question I have is, if the strategy is sound, why businesses go down, right? Now simple. Even if your strategy is wonderful, right? So that I will tell you this a great example, okay? I'll give you a great example. Now your strategy is wonderful, but your implementation is flawed. What will happen? I'll take an example from your case only. Okay, Sarthak, let us take your case. Probably I'm taking hypothetical example. So let us suppose Sarthak says that I will study 7 hours today. Okay, your strategy is you will study 7 hours today, but you start your day by watching 3 movies of 3 hours each. Okay, you watch 3 movies of 3 hours each back to back on Netflix. Your strategy was wonderful that you will study 7 hours today and you would complete at least 2 chapters. The strategy is wonderful, but the execution, instead of studying, you watched movies. Your execution, your implementation was very weak. You will go downwards. You will go downwards, right? That is why, even if the strategy is wonderful, your implementation is weak, you're bound to fail, right? That is what an organization also has to look up to, right? If implementation is weak, but if your implementation is excellent and your strategy is flawed, probably change your strategy, right? Change your strategy because it is time to change your strategy, right? This is super simple. This is super simple. I think that's common sense based thing that we are doing a relationship between implementation and formulation, right? Okay, let us talk a little more on this. Wherein, just remember, I used 2 words. When I was talking about implementation, I used 2 words that your implementation should be efficient and effective, right? I use 2 words that when your implementation is excellent, when your implementation is proper, that means it is effective and it is efficient. It is effective and it is efficient. What does these 2 words mean? Okay. Now, efficiency. Just remember these 2 things and your concept will be clear. Just remember these 2 things and the concept will be clear, right? Efficiency is more from an implementation point of view, and effectiveness is more from a formulation point of view. Why? The question should come why? Because efficiency is to do the things right. Efficiency means to do the things right, and effectiveness means to do the right things. Do the right things is effectiveness. Efficiency is to do the things right. Okay. Now, I will give you another example from your life explaining effectiveness and efficiency. Okay. Now, you have a challenge in your life that says you have to, let us say, you have to improve your eating habits. Okay. Now, you have to improve your eating habits. You have to improve your eating habits is what the idea is what the end result is what your vision and mission is. Okay. Now, what are the things that will make you effective? To do the right things. To do the right things. Okay. To do the right things means not eating junk food, eating only healthy food, exercising, right? Not eating junk food, eating only healthy food, and exercising, right? That is, if you do all of these, you will be effective. If you do all of these, you will be effective in achieving your goal of a healthy life. Now, what is efficiency? What is efficiency? Not eating junk foods, you will be effective when you don't eat junk food. But for that, you remove every junk food from your house. You remove Maggie, you remove chips, you remove chocolates from your house, right? You only keep healthy foods in your house, healthy snacks in your house, and you start exercise. You buy a yoga mat and you start doing yoga in the mornings, right? Now, when you are effective, you are in the planning mode. You are in the formulation point that I will not eat junk food. I will only eat healthy food. I'll go exercise. You're effective. If you do all of this, you are effective. That means to do the right things. You are doing the right things, right? Now, efficiency. You will be efficient if you do these things right. If you do these things right, if you do these things in the right fashion, in the right way, you will be efficient. Okay? Does this help? Does this help efficiency and effectiveness? Does this help? We will also take example of organization. Don't worry on that. But does this help? Right. Perfect. Thanks, Christy, for saying that. What about others? We'll come to examples of organization as well, but basic idea what efficiency and effectiveness is. Right. Great to see you yes again. To do the things right is efficiency. To do the right things is effectiveness. Effectiveness, to do the right things, is more of formulation point of view. It's more of idea. It's more about when you're planning something. To do the right things is when you're implementing, when you're taking actual actions, right? आप कुछ सही सोच रहे हैं, that is effectiveness. आप सही से वो कर रहे हैं is your efficiency, right? That is what these two terms talk about. Now, efficiency, because it is based on implementation. Now, remember the keywords. As you go above in this particular box, just remember the keywords. Efficiency is more about to do the right things right, and it talks about implementation. It talks about implementation. Who does implementation? Operational managers. Operational managers do implementation. Business level, functional level managers do implementation. So efficiency is the responsibility of operational managers because they are doing the implementation. While effectiveness is more about formulation, about taking decisions of what is to be done, and that is done by top management. So effectiveness is the responsibility of top management, and efficiency is the responsibility of operational managers. That is business and functional and corporate leaders take effectiveness. Your corporate leaders. Now I'll ask a question to you. Okay. Now I'll also give the answer, but the question is, the corporate leaders should be effective or efficient? Corporate leaders, if I ask you, if in the exam you get a question like corporate leaders should be effective or they should be efficient, the answer would be corporate leaders should be effective, right? They should ideally focus on to do the right things for the organization. While your functional or operational managers should focus on to do the things in the right way because they are implementing, right? Simple. Effectiveness and efficiency in strategic direction. That's good to hear, Purnima, doing something extracurricular. Good to see you guys doing some things beyond study as well. So that's good to hear. Not an issue. Right? Your corporate leaders should be effective while your functional operational managers should be more focused on efficiency, right? Great. Can we move on to the next topic quickly? Give me a yes, please. Don't give me a no. Give me a yes. Can we move on to the next topic? Perfect. I'll just wait for another few yeses. Perfect. Okay, let us quickly move on to the next topic. Now, the principal combination of efficiency and effectiveness, right? Now, the combination of efficiency, you see, this is efficiency. I will take it yellow now. This is efficiency. This is efficiency and this is effectiveness. This is efficiency and this is effectiveness. Now, my question to you is, similarly like you did the last concept. Now, if I am very effective, but I'm very low on efficiency, I'm very effective, but I'm low on efficiency, what will happen to me? If I'm very effective, but I'm very low on efficiency, what will happen to me as an organization, as an individual, as an organization, as a business, as an entrepreneur, as an intrapreneur, as a corporate leader. If I'm very effective, but I'm very low on efficiency, what will happen to me? Are you sure? Are you sure that you will survive or you will die quickly? Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Your efficiency is low, but your effectiveness is high, you will survive. What will happen if my efficiency is also low and my effectiveness is also low? My efficiency is low, my effectiveness is also slow. What will happen? My efficiency is low, my effectiveness is also low. What will happen? My efficiency is low, my effectiveness is also low. What will happen? Great. Efficiency is low, effectiveness is also low. I will die quickly, right? Simple matrix, simple matrix. Now, what should I do? What should I do? My question to you is, just look at these four squares and tell me if I am very high on effectiveness and I'm very high on efficiency. I'm very high on effectiveness and very high on efficiency. What will happen to me? I'm very high on efficiency, very high on effectiveness. What will happen to me? What will happen to me if I'm high at both the things? I'm highly efficient, I'm highly effective. What will happen to me as an organization? Absolutely, I will thrive. I will thrive, but I will also be in a competitive position, right? Because I am very good at taking effective decisions. I'm very efficient. I'm very efficient at doing things, right? I'm very efficient at doing things. Efficient is doing things. Effective is taking decisions, right? If you can also write it down somewhere, probably this might help. Effectiveness is taking good decisions, and efficiency is making, like, working on those decisions in a proper way, right? Doing things is efficiency. I'm doing it very efficiently while I think very effectively, right? I think very effectively and I'm very efficient at doing it, right? If you're good at both, you will thrive as a business, you will grow as a business, you will be successful as a business. If you are weak at both the things, you will die quickly. You will die quickly. But if you're good at efficiency, if you're good at efficiency, but you're low on effectiveness, that means you plan poorly, but you execute very good, right? You plan very poorly, but you do it in the right way. You plan poorly, but you do complete your plans in the right way. You will die slowly. You will die slowly because your plan is not right. When your plan is not right, even if you do it with utmost efficiency, it will not succeed, right? But what if? What if your plan is very good? What if your plan is very good, but you're not able to do it effectively, efficiently? You will still survive. You will not be successful, but you will just survive because your plan is wonderful, right? So the important thing here is you have to be very effective, first of all, right? If you see effectiveness, even if it's effectiveness, whenever effectiveness is high, you will be successful or survive. But if your efficiency is high, You might even die slowly, right? So it is very important. The analysis is that your plan should be very foolproof. Your plan should be very strong. You should be very effective. You should be very effective, right? Absolutely. You will be in a competitive position if you're very effective and you're very efficient at the same time. You will thrive. You will be successful as a business. Right? This is what the relationship between efficiency, the principal combinations between efficiency and effectiveness are all about. Right? These are the four combinations of effectiveness and efficiency. Super simple, right? Great. Let us move on quickly to the next topic, which talks about change, right? Change is the only constant. Things change for the better. If anything is changing around you, if things are changing, they're only bringing something new. It might be tough, it might be not in your favor, but it might also bring an opportunity, right? Now, whenever there is a change around the organization, be it suppliers, be it market, be it consumers, be it government, be it foreign competition, be it domestic competition, be it within the organization, people are changing, people are leaving, the CEO is changing, the leaders are changing, or something new is happening, a lot of innovation is happening, a lot of change is coming, right? Right. There are changes in implementation strategy. And when everything changes, you have to change your implementation and evaluation, right? Now, when do you understand you have to change? When do you understand that you have to change is through implementation and evaluation. You have to evaluate. The key thing to understand is you have to evaluate that things are changing and so I will have to change. Things are changing and so I will have to change. You have to evaluate that. And that is what makes a strategy important, right? That is what we talked about. Strategies is not just a one-time long-term plan, but it involves changing with the changing environment. And how do you identify changes? Through evaluation. Right? Okay, we have a question from the last concept. How 4 will be better than box number 1? Okay, 4 will be better than box number 1 absolutely because you are surviving and you're dying slowly, right? Kamal, what if I tell you you will not be able to cross the river? Let us suppose I throw you in the river. And I tell you, you will just keep floating, you will not die. You will just keep floating in the river, but you will not be able to cross the river. Or if I tell you, you will slowly drown in the river. You will not be able to survive in the river, you will drown and die, right? Which is better? Is it better to slowly drown and die, or is it better to just keep floating even if I'm not being able to cross the river? I think it is better to keep floating, right? That is why box number 4 is better than box number 1. We were talking about change. Right? Now, change is about 2 things, okay? Now we'll come to this, but I'll come to this after change. Okay, I'll come to this after change because there's an important thing to talk on change, right? We'll come to linkages and backward linkages, and then we'll talk about your strategic implementation formulation differences. Okay, I'll tell you why later on. But let us complete forward linkages and backward linkages first. Okay, we'll complete that as well. Now, there are 2 kinds of linkages that exist between the 2 phases. We are talking about formulation and implementation. We're talking about formulation and implementation, right? That is the matrix we saw. The matrix we saw was formulation and implementation, right? Now there are two types of linkages. There is a forward linkage and there is a backward linkage, right? Two types of linkages between formulation and implementation. There is a forward linkage and there is a backward linkage, right? Forward linkage is simple. It deals with the impact of strategy formulation on strategy implementation, right? Now I'll ask you a question and then we'll see why is that forward. You plan first or you execute first, right? Visheshti, I think dying quickly is easier, but not for a business. You're thinking from your personal experience. But I say, think from a business perspective, right? Dying quickly is not an option. That is not why you are doing the business. Right? You're doing business to survive, to be successful, apparently. But my question to you is, will you plan first or will you take actions first? What comes first? You plan first, right? You cannot do both the things continuously, probably, right? That comes, you do it continuously when you are already when you have already done the plan. What if you are planning something? You plan something and only then execute, right? If you plan to go to Mauritius, you will only first plan and then book the tickets, right? It's not like you book the tickets and then plan, oh, I think I should go to Mauritius, right? Great. So this is why the impact of formulation on implementation is forward linkage, which means because formulation comes before planning, so anything that changes in your formulation, in your planning this is formulation and implementation, my bad. So if anything changes in your plan, that will lead to a change in your implementation. Right? That is called forward linkage. Now, backward linkage is if you have to change your implementation, your plans will also change. If there's a change in implementation, your plans will also change, right? Your formulation will also change. Why is that so? Right? I'll give you a classic example that we were discussing. Now let us suppose your plan is to go to Mauritius and your implementation is you're booking tickets for flight, for hotels, for your taxi, you're planning your itinerary, that where you'll go and everything. Okay. Now your plan, your formulation, if it changes, now you plan, let us not go to Mauritius, let us go to Dubai. Now your formulation changed. Now your implementation will also change, right? Your implementation, now you will book tickets for Dubai. You will pack your clothes as per Dubai, not as per Mauritius. You will plan everything as per Dubai. Your implementation will be now based on your new plan that has changed, on your new formulation that has changed. What happens when your implementation changes and then you have to change your plan? Now let us suppose you planned that let us go to Mauritius and you start booking your tickets. Okay, you plan that you have to go to Mauritius and you start booking your tickets. You go to Mauritius, you reach Mauritius, you have already booked taxi from airport to your hotel, but now the taxi person says that only when you give me 200 rupees extra or 200, whatever the currency is extra, only then I'll go, right? Now you change your implementation. What you're doing is now you are actually implementing that particular thing. You're doing that thing, you're taking that action, but now you have to change your plan. Right? when you're actually taking actions, you are already there. You're implementing, and you see, boss, there is a change now. There is a sudden change from the outside. This is not something we were ready for. While we were implementing, we changed, right? And then your planning changed. Your planning changes, and now you're not going to go by taxi. You think, I'll take an auto. There, right? Because when you're taking actions, something changes, you go and revise your plan. That is what backward linkage is. Right? For instance, like for example, changes are required in organizational structure, or the style of leadership has to be adapted to the needs of the modified or new strategies. Right? Now, in business sense, if I talk about business sense, if your strategy changes, your organizational structure might change, or you might need new style of leadership for implementation, right? That is a forward linkage. Right? That is an example of a forward linkage. Probably when you're changing your strategy, based on that strategy, you will have to change your leadership style. But what if you change your leadership style, and based on that, you have to change your strategy? That is a backward linkage. Probably you are a transformational leader, but the strategy is not as per the transformational leaders like premise, right? It is not very visionary, but the strategy is not asking for a lot of innovation, but you are a transformational leader. You go back and change the strategy. Like, boss, I am a transformational leader. I change the strategy. I change the formulation itself because this is not how I implement. And this is not how I take actions. Because based on actions now, we are changing the strategy. Otherwise, based on strategy, you will choose the leader, whether transactional or transformational leader. But here, based on the leader, you're changing the strategy. So forward linkage and backward linkage. Okay. Cool. Not in short, I think you will catch up. Probably I speak a lot, so you will catch up. Any questions so far? If it's clear, I'll be happy to see all clear or everything clear. That also helps. That actually helps more. Absolutely, Nishma. I can guarantee you that. Okay, we have a lot of yeses. So good to see that. Wonderful. Let us move on to the next thing, which is issues in strategy implementation. Probably you wouldn't see implementation here. I'll just write it down. Maybe some glitch in my presentation. Not an issue. Because my strategy is changing, I'm changing my execution. I'm writing right here. That is also change in strategy, right? Okay. Now what happens? Now, issues in strategy implementation is that just in transition from strategy formulation to strategy implementation requires a shift in responsibility, right? Now, the corporate leader is giving directions to business and functional leader, right? Or corporate leader is giving to business leader is giving to functional leader is giving to employees under them, right? Now, what is happening? There is a shift in responsibility. Now, what can happen is the corporate leaders are deciding a strategy, and that can come as a surprise to the middle and lower level managers. Now, the business leader, the functional leader are working on their basic activities, right? The usual activities they do. Suddenly, the corporate leaders come and tell them that, boss, we are changing the strategy. We are not going to do what you are doing right now. You have to do this now. Now, this might come as a surprise. This might come as a surprise to them, right? This might come as a surprise to the middle or lower level managers. Therefore, it is essential. That means it is important. It is important that the divisional and functional managers be involved as much as possible in the strategy formulation process, right? That is why it is important that the middle level managers, business and functional managers, be involved as much as possible in strategy formulation process itself. In the strategy formulation process itself, they should be involved as much as possible, right? That is one thing that the leaders or the people at the corporate level should ensure, right? Because at the end of the day, they have to do the work, they have to implement. So boss, you involve them so that you get insights, so that it doesn't come as a surprise and they feel part of the organization, right? Okay. Now, issues in strategy implementation which are to be considered in sequential manner. That means in the same manner, in the same numeric numbers, you have to consider this. You have to consider these issues related to strategy implementation in the same number-wise format. Okay. The first is project implementation, procedural implementation, resource allocation, structural implementation, functional implementation, behavioral implementation. Why is this so tough? How will I remember this? How will I remember this for examination? It is super simple. Okay. Think from a logic. That is what I keep telling you. Think from a logic. Now, what is happening is, the question at hand is, what are the issues in strategy implementation? The question that has come to you is, what do you think are the issues in strategy implementation? Okay. Now, what is happening? I see that a project implementation as the first. Project means a small part, right? Probably when I am changing the formulation, right? I have an idea now. I am a corporate leader. I think this is the new thing I want my people to do. This is the new thing I want my business to do. What are the issues that will come if I go and implement this strategy? What will happen is, I will first have to identify the problems in implementation at a small scale first. Instead of going to the entire organization, I will first check at a small part of the organization, that is project implementation. Small part of the business, you check and then you decide what are the problems that are coming in the business, right? Based on that project, you have to go stepwise. Remember this, you have to go stepwise in this. First, you check on a small part of the business. Then you see, okay, what are the procedures that I have to bring in place so that everything is done at a massive scale? Now, I tested the change. I tested my strategy that I have formulated. I have implemented that strategy in a small part of business. Now I want to take it to the entire organization. So I will now identify and work on the procedures. Like, how will I ensure this to the entire organization? How will this go to the entire organization? Right? How will this go to the entire organization? Once I identify what is the procedure I have to follow, I will have to ensure the resource allocation. How much money, how much time, how many people will be involved in this? What are the managers I will have to keep? Which all managers can ensure this? Okay, Mr. X, Mr. Y, Miss W, Miss T, they can help me in resource in this particular implementation. So let me allocate these people to these particular places, and then we will be able to implement in a better way. resource allocation you will do, right? Then, once you allocate resources, then you will create a structure. You will create a structure. Okay, Mr. X, Mr. Y, Miss W, Miss T. 4 managers I've identified. These will work on the implementation of the strategy. Let me put five people under each of these people. You are creating a structure. You are creating a structure. Structural implementation, right? Functional implementation. These 5 people will do what? The people under Mr. X will take care of this. People under Mr. Y will take care of this. People under Miss T will take care of this. People under Miss W will take care of this. Functional implementation. Behavioral implementation. All of these people, the 4 leaders and 20 people under them, should work towards the corporate culture. Behavioral implementation. Everyone should be focused on innovation. Everyone should be focused on automation. Everyone should be focused on top quality. Everyone should have ethics. Everyone should have inclusivity. Everyone should work on it being part of teams, not working individually, but working in teams. We create behavioral implementation, right? Project, small part. Understand how to do that to the entire organization. I create a procedure. I find out resources, this much money, these many people, this much time will be involved in this new strategy that I formulated to be implemented. Then I'll create a structure for the strategy to be implemented. I will find out what are the different functions people will do, what are the different things that I want to get done based on the strategy. And then I will ensure everyone is working towards the same vision, towards the same mission. That is behavioral implementation. Simple. 6 steps might seem very tough, are common sense, right? Any doubts on this? Any doubts on this? Project implementation, Namita, is you're testing something on a small part of the business and then finding out procedures to spread it to the entire organization. That is the difference. Great. If it's clear, that helps. I just want a few more yeses and then we'll move on to the next concept quickly. Because my plan is to complete chapter 8 today so that I can focus purely on examination questions. I can focus on entire syllabus revision quickly. I want to do a few cases, few independent MCQs, a few exam tips and doubts, how to write this, how to find this, how to identify. We'll do that in the next session. We'll not cover any concept. Probably that is what my plan is. Okay, so we'll rush into the next concept, which is strategic change, right? Now, why we studied change first and then we're talking about strategic change here, right? I'll tell you why. Because when we talk about strategy implementation and formulation, the steps, probably you saw we took examples of things changing, right? From this strategy, now I want to change my strategy to something else. What are the changes, what are the problems that will come in implementation? That is why we just, like very small part, we touched on change. Okay. Now, complex process involved, it's a complex process. Now you have to understand strategic change is a complex process. It's not easy. It's a very complex process that involves changing corporate strategy like scope, the resource deployment, competitive advantage, and synergy. Right? It involves a lot of things. It involves changing entire thing or a few things. That depends on the change you want to bring, right? That is the change you want to bring. Absolutely. Shrishti is giving a good example now. Your strategy is to complete chapter 8. Now we will have to implement that and complete it today. Right? That is what the target is. Okay, so let us move on quickly then. The changes in environment. Now, this concept, I think we have been studying since foundation. Environment is changing, and so you have to change. That is why the strategy also changes. The strategy change is a complex process that involves change, focus on new markets. Probably you find a new opportunity, new market, or a new product or a service, or new ways of doing business. And that might bring about a strategic change. You found a new product, you found a new market, you found a new service, you found new ways of doing your business, and that brings about a strategic change. Now, change process is not a one-time application, but a continuous process because the environment keeps changing. Now, this environment is changing every day, every single minute. So you also have to keep changing, and that is what strategic change is all about, right? It's a continuous process. Now, the steps to initiate a change. Now, there are 3 steps to initiate a strategic change. We talked about why do we have to change? Because the environment is changing. It's a complex process. But how do you do that? If it is a complex process, how do you actually bring about a strategic change, right? First thing, you identify whether the change is needed or not. You recognize the need for change. You do that by environment scanning using SWOT analysis. First thing, you identify whether the change is needed or not, right? Even if the environment is changing, it doesn't mean you have to change every time. Probably you have to identify whether you need to change or not, right? Then second, you create a shared vision to manage change. Who will explain shared vision to me? I want to see who can explain this particular word, shared vision. And the third one is institutionalizing the change. Institutionalizing means bringing about a change in the entire organization, right? Bringing about a change in the entire organization. Recognizing the need, creating a shared vision to manage change, and then institutionalizing. That means change in the organization at the entire whole full level, right? Manan, we will not get a break today, probably. We're going pretty slow, I think. We wouldn't need a break today. Okay. Individual and organizational objectives should be in line with each other. That is absolutely right. Good one, Shrishti. That's a good one, right? Your shared vision. Shared vision means you have to create a vision wherein the organization and the individuals which are concerned with the organization, like employees, like stakeholders, like shareholders, creditors, government, vendors, customers, all of these are aware and are considered while bringing about change, right? All of these people are considered. What is the impact on them when you're bringing about a change? That is what shared vision is all about, right? Okay. Now there are 3 phases of change process. Mr. Kurt Levens has given a model which says, how do you actually bring about a change? He says there are 3 phases. It's again common sense. Unfreezing, changing, and refreezing, right? Because you're bringing about a change, you unfreeze the existing procedures, existing people, existing ways, existing culture, existing strategy, existing XYZ, whatever you're changing. Here we are changing the strategy. So you unfreeze the ways the business was actually done, then you change it, right? You change it. Now we'll come to another segment, but then you unfreeze. That means you unfreeze what is already being done currently, then you change it, and then you refreeze it so that the new change becomes permanent. Simple, very simple. But when you change the actual strategy, it brings about three kinds of patterns, right? New patterns of behavior: compliance, identification, and internalization. We'll study on this, but just understand that within changing, we have three patterns of behavior: compliance, identification, and internalization, right? So Mr. Kurt Levin says that there are three phases when you bring about a strategic change. You unfreeze, you change, and then you refreeze. You unfreeze, you change, and then you refreeze. Okay. Now, within changing, he says, there is another guy, which is H.C. Kellman. H.C. Kellman says that there are three methods. There are three methods where new patterns of behavior, like based on new patterns of behavior, there are three methods. There is compliance, there is identification, and there is internalization. We will study these. What are the three methods of bringing about a change? What are the three methods of bringing about a change? But these are three phases of the change process, right? Okay. Now, the three methods of bringing about a change by H.C. Kellman are compliance, identification, and internalization. Now, when you're bringing about a change, you unfreeze, you change, you refreeze. But how do you change is the question. How do you change? You change by three ways. You either bring about a compliance, right? The way you want people to behave. These are behavioral changes. Now the example is you are the CEO. You are the CEO of a very big company and you are changing your strategy. You are a CEO of a very big company and now you're changing your strategy and you want all the 5,000 employees of your company to be aligned with the new strategy. You want them to work on the new strategy. What are the three ways? What are the three ways by which you will influence them or you will make them work for that new strategy? These are the three ways. The first one is called compliance. Okay, the first one is called compliance. Now, compliance means you reward and you punish people, right? You reward for good behavior and you punish for bad behavior. When you get rewards for good behavior, the good behavior here means that you're working towards the new strategy, you are rewarded. You are given more money, you are given more awards, you are recognized more, you're brought on a stage and you are told, like 5,000 people told, like this is like Mr. Y, Miss X has done wonderful job in this particular month. So congratulations, you get award, you get a gift and everything. You get rewards for being aligned to the new strategy. While people who are resistant to change, who are not working towards the new strategy, who are acting as barriers, they are punished. Probably they are fired or they are not recognized much or probably they are not given variable pays, XYZ, right? There are different ways to punish them as well. And that is one way of bringing about a change. It is called compliance. The second way of bringing about a change in the organization's behavior, in the people's behavior in the organization is identification. Identification is by bringing about role models like Azim Premji or like Narayan Murthy or Ratan Tata. Now, if Ratan Tata stands on a stage and tells people that this is my new strategy and I want all of you to work towards this new strategy, people identify him as a role model and they want to bring about a change as per his new strategy. Right? This is called identification. They identify themselves with the organization or with the particular leader, right? By psychologically impressing members to identify themselves with some given role model. That is called identification. The third way of bringing about a change in the behavior of people working in the organization when the strategy changes is internalization. By internally changing the individual's thought process, right? By internally changing the individual's thought process. You tell them that this is the new strategy and this is what we are envisioning. We want you to work for this new thing. We want you to work for the new strategy. You you internally influence them, you internally bring about a sense of accomplishment, right? You tell them, for example, now there's a big company with 5,000 employees and they want to switch to an eco-friendly office system wherein they tell their employees that from today none of the employees will bring any plastic products within the office premise. Okay, now you're internally changing the individual's thought process. You're telling them that let us all as an organization work towards the environment, towards the betterment of environment, and we should not use any plastic product while we are in the office so that it at least adds something to the particular cause, right? So you're internally changing an individual's thought process. That is how you're bringing about a strategic change. That is about you're bringing about a change, right? So compliance, where you reward and punish, identification, where you give them a role model to follow, and internalization, wherein you change their internal thought process, where you ideally change their thought process itself so that they connect with the new strategy, right? These are the three ways or three methods of actually bringing about a change in people's behavior when the strategy changes, given by H.C. Kellman. Given by H.C. Kellman. Right? Any doubts so far? Any doubts so far? Absolutely. Aryan, that particular Tata employee, there was a photo that Ratan Tata posted, right? That an employee was covering a street dog with an umbrella. So that they're being rewarded. He's being recognized by the chairman. So compliance. They're creating a behavioral change in the organization that the company, that the leaders value your process, your change or your thought process, right? Wonderful. I would need more yeses and then we'll quickly move on to the next slide. Any questions, any doubts? If not, please throw a yes towards me. I don't see a yes or something. Why is that so? Perfect. I have a yes from Arihan. Kushi, that's good. Okay, I have few more yeses. Let us move on to the next one, right? Which is strategic control. The next concept we are going to study about is strategic control. Now, strategic control helps to ensure that what is planned is translated into results. What is planned is actually translated into results. What is planned is actually translated into results is what strategic control does. Okay, this is what strategic control does. And whatever is planned is translated into results. It's very simple. Strategic control is regarded as the core function of management process because they have to ensure that whatever we are planning is actually being done or not, right? Strategic control is to ensure what is planned is translated into results, and that is why it is the core function of the management process, because whatever planning they are sitting and doing, that is their job. Their job is to plan. They also have to ensure that it is actually converted into results, right? Control is intended to regulate and check. They regulate and check that whatever planning we have done is actually done, implemented or not, right? It involves monitoring the activities and measuring results against pre-established standards, analyzing, correcting deviations, and maintaining or adapting the system, right? It involves monitoring the activity, measuring results. They're monitoring what is happening, they're measuring the results, whether we are profitable or not, right? They're against predetermined or pre-established standards, that is budgeting, or probably that is probably forecasting and analyzing and correcting those deviations as necessary, maintaining and adapting the system. That is what is happening, right? That is what strategic control is all about. Whatever you planned is actually converted into results. Now, the strategic control process. How is actually strategic control done? How is strategic control actually done? How do I control this particular thing? I planned a strategy. People are implementing that. We studied what is a strategy, how we plan that. We understood how we formulate that, right? But how do you check? How do you check that whatever is planned is implemented in the right way, right? It has the following elements. It has the following elements. The first one is objectives which could be operationalized into measurable and controllable standards, right? First of all, you have to ensure that your strategy can be presented in a measurable and controllable manner. You have to ensure that your strategy or your objectives can be measured and can be actually put in measurable format, right? So probably if I give you an example, my strategy is to become one of the biggest manufacturers of cement. Okay, now I have to become one of the biggest manufacturers of cement. How would you check they are the biggest manufacturers? You will have to have a number, right? If I produce 10 million tons of cement in a month, I will be the biggest manufacturer, right? You have to have a measurable quantity of your strategy. Whatever the strategy is, you have to make it measurable. Only then you can control, right? Otherwise, you will not be able to control. How will you ensure that whatever you planned is happening? I want to make 2% more profit in the next 3 months. You will have to measure that, right? That is why your strategy should be measurable. Second, mechanism for monitoring and measuring performance of the system. Not just the quantity, not just the numeric measurability, but also the qualitative measurability, right? Measuring the performance of the system. This is quantitative and this is qualitative. Qualitative, quantitative, right? You have to be measurable in both the terms, quantitative terms and qualitative terms, right? You have to have a mechanism for comparing actual results with standards, detecting deviations, learning new insights on standards themselves. Okay, what does these three things mean? Super simple. You should be able to compare your actual results with the standards. The market standard is everyone in the market is making 5% profit. Now you are making 6% profit. Okay, that means I'm better than the competition. So you should be able to compare. That is how you're controlling your strategy. Whether my strategy is good or not, whether it is beneficial to me or not, how do I check? I'll check by measuring it. First is comparing. People are making 5%, I'm making 6%. Okay. Second is detecting deviations. Last year, I made 5%. This year, I made 3%. Why is there a deviation? Why is there a deviation? Why am I losing out 2%? Or people were making 5%, now they're making 7%, but I am still making 5%. Why is there a deviation? Why is there a difference? You should be able to work on that. Third one, you should be able to learn new insights. People were making 5% last year. Competition, people in the market, that is your competition, is now making 7% this year. How did that happen? To identify, okay, so why are they able to make 2% extra is because the raw material dropped. The price of the raw material dropped. So I think my entire cost should have also dropped. And that is how I can also drop my entire cost, probably by using that particular raw material or that new technology, right? Learning new insights from the standards themselves, right? Number 4, mechanism for feeding back. You should learn to have a feedback. Only then you'll be able to control. I want to be the best, the best coffee shop in let us say Udaipur. Okay, I as a business decide that I want to be the best coffee shop in Udaipur, and I'm making super good profits. I'm making 20% profits. I have a lot of people coming in, but people are complaining about this seating. They say there are a lot of mosquitoes in my cafe. They say the glasses are not clean, even though my coffee is wonderful. My glasses are not clean, or my place is very small. I need to get a feedback to ensure that my strategy is actually it's good from an all-round perspective, right? There has to be a mechanism of feeding back. Only then you can control. Only then you can check. Only then you can evaluate. Only then you can re-evaluate and change your strategy based on the feedback, based on the control, right? So four things that come in when you're bringing about a process of control is you need to make quantitative measurability, qualitative measurability. When we talk about measurability, be it quantitative, be it qualitative, it should be comparable. You should be able to detect deviations, why are changes coming in. You should be able to learn new things from these metrics. You should be able to evaluate new things from this measurement. And you should have a mechanism for feedback from the customer, from the producer, from the manufacturer, from the supplier, from the purchaser, from the government. You should be able to get a feedback. Only then your strategic control process will be foolproof, right? Any questions on this? Any questions on strategic control process? Absolutely. Learning new insights on standards themselves can also mean that the standards that you set were already incorrect. You might need to find out new standards. Right? That is also new insight. That is also learning new insight. That is part of that. Great. I'll just wait for a few more yeses or no questions or no doubts, and then we move on quickly to the next concept. Great. I'll just wait for another 10 seconds. Wonderful. Okay, let us move on to the next one, which is organizational control, the types of controls: operational control, management control, and strategic control, right? As the words talk, operational control, that means focuses on individual tasks, on the operations, on the actual actions. Management control, that is inclusive and aggregative activities, right? The entire control on the management, not just similar small tasks, small functions, but the entire business, right? And the strategic control, which focuses on dual question. Strategic control is asking just two questions. First, are we implementing as we planned? Number two, are the intended results being met or not, right? Are the intended results being met or not, right? So operational control, management control, and strategic control. Operational control, management control, and strategic control, right? There are three types of organizational controls. Three types of organizational controls. Operational control, which is, you understand what is control? All the four things are controlled. All the four things are controlled. Measuring quantitative, qualitative, comparing, detecting deviations, learning new insights, and taking the feedback is control. If that is done for individual tasks, for each and every function, each and every process, each and every product, each and every line, each and every business, that is operational control. If all of this is done for the entire organization, for all the activities in the organization, management control, right? And strategic control is a little different. Strategic control is a little different, which says, is the implementation done as planned and are intended results being met? You do that by this only, because this is strategic control. Now you understand what is happening. Strategic control is just trying to solve two questions by all these steps. Strategic control is trying to solve two questions by doing all of these four things, all of these four elements. What is it trying to solve? Strategic control is trying to solve two questions. Number one, is the implementation as planned? Are we doing the things as we planned? Number two, are the intended results being met? Are we able to achieve what we want to? By doing all of this, it checks this. By doing all of this, it checks these two questions, right? That is what strategic control is all about, right? Now, further, as you move further, you understand, that there are four types of strategic controls. There are four types of strategic controls: premise control, strategic surveillance, special ed control, and implementation control. Again, very simple. Again, super duper simple. Okay. Now, a premise control. Now, just keep in head, strategic control is trying to solve two questions. Is the implementation as planned? Are intended results being met? It is just trying to solve two questions. Now, these two questions, if are to be divided into four types, this is what we have. Number one is premise control. So premise control is systematic focus and continuous monitoring of environment and industry. Premise control, very simple. Premise control. Classic example is you read newspaper. You reading newspaper is premise control. You reading newspaper daily is premise control. You reading newspaper daily is premise control. There is no break today because it's a Saturday, it's a weekend, and probably we'll try to cover as much as we can, because the last session is going to be very exam oriented. I want it to be very exam oriented. Okay? So bear with me today. You reading the newspaper is premise control because you're focused and continuously monitoring the environment factors in the industry. What is happening in the market? What is the new thing that is happening? Okay, so this is something that the competitor has done. Okay, this is what is something happening with the competitor. Oh, okay, the owner of that company has gone to jail. Okay, this owner has become the member of parliament. Okay, so you read news and you see what is happening in the environment. You see what is happening in the industry. And that is premise control. That is how you control, that is how you analyze and evaluate whether the strategy is as planned, are the intended results being met, right? Probably if only when I analyze this, I'll be able to identify that do I need to change the strategy? Do I need to change the strategy or not? That is why you do a premise control. Strategic surveillance, right? Strategic surveillance is unfocused, loose form of strategic control, right? It's a loose form of strategic control. Strategic surveillance is probably reading the newspaper without the intention of finding what is happening new in the environment, right? Strategic surveillance is probably, it is unfocused and it is focused. It is systematic focus. Now understand what is happening. When you're reading the news, when you're analyzing the environment with a focus on identifying, okay, what is happening new? What is my competitor doing? That is premise control. Strategic surveillance says you're not finding something what is happening, but you're just reading the newspaper and you find out, okay, so this is also happening. That is also happening, right? That is strategic surveillance. You understand the difference? Premise control is focused. I am reading something, I'm reading the internet, I'm reading a news, I'm reading an article, I'm talking to someone, I'm getting expert advice from someone, I'm paying a lawyer to get advice, I'm paying a market researcher to get advice. That is premise control. That is systematic focus and continuous monitoring. I'm paying someone and I'm reading with very focus, or I'm reading the internet with very focus, that I have to find out what is happening with them, what is happening with the environment. That is premise control, right? But if you're reading or analyzing the environment or industry or yourself or your competition without the intention of finding something specific, just a general overview, strategic surveillance, special alert control, immediate and intense review of eventualities. The moment you find out something is changing, the moment you find out something has come up, you immediately review that whether my strategy needs to change or not. Should I change my strategy? Okay, I think this is happening. There's a special alert. Okay, so one of the competitors filed for bankruptcy. Immediate and intense change in the strategy. I need to take control over my strategy. I need to have a special alert control, right? These are the kinds of controls that you keep in your strategy implementation, in your strategic control. The last one is implementation control, right? Not operational control, but implementation control. It is of two types: monitoring strategic thrusts and milestone reviews, right? Now, monitoring strategic thrusts is probably the implementation part. Like I told you, if you're going to Mauritius, you book the taxi wala says, give me 200 rupees extra, only then I'll go. You monitor strategic thrust. Instantly there is something wrong that has happened. You have an implementation control, right? You are able to control that. You're able to analyze that. You're able to evaluate that. You're able to change your strategy, implement it again, and be successful, right? Implementation control. Monitoring strategic thrust. Okay, then what will happen is, I'll give you an example of implementation control. The first time the taxi wala says, give me 200 extra, only then I'll pay. The next time you book a taxi in Mauritius, you will be aware that they might ask for extra money. So you're monitoring the strategic thrust. So now you are prepared. You monitor that, okay, this is the trend that is happening in taxi walas in this country. So let me plan ahead. Probably if he asks for 100 rupees, I will bargain and say, no, I'll give you 20 rupees extra, and then, because you are obligated, that depends on your strategy. Or you'll go with an auto, or you'll fight it off, right? It depends on your strategy. But you're able to monitor that. Milestone reviews. The other way of checking your implementation in your business strategy is milestone reviews. So if I say in next 8 months, I have to develop an Android app on which people can purchase my product. I create 3 milestones: 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. After 3 months, the app should be developed in the raw form. After 6 months, it should be developed completely, and within 8 months, it should go online. It should go live. People should be actually using that app from the App Store. So you create milestone reviews. So you implement, when you're implementing for 3 months, after 3 months, you go and check. Where am I? Is it actually helping? Is it actually working now? Is it actually implementation is as planned? Or are the intended results being met? Is it happening? Right? You check it after the milestone of 3 months, and then after 6 months, and then after 8 months. So milestone reviews. So these are the 4 kinds of strategic controls that you can actually use. Right? Does the industry come under environment? It does. It does. But why we have bifurcated is because of the word focused. Because of the word focus. Wherein environment is external, and when we're talking about industry, it's very specific to your business, right? That is why it has been separated. So we'll have to check that online, right? When the lectures for May 22, probably we'll update that on BOS, not sure of that. Is this clear? Great, good to see you're back online with us. We do case studies in the next session. So that's a good one. Manju. That's absolutely what organizations did. That's what strategic control is. Any doubts, so we can move forward. Give me a yes, please. Probably then I'll move ahead. Perfect. Okay, great. This is something that we have just discussed. Premise control, strategic surveillance, special alert control, and number 4 is implementation control. Right? What is happening here? If you look at it very closely, it's very simple. It's very simple, right? Time 1, time 2, time 3. So when your strategy formulation is happening, when you're just making plans, you will use strategic surveillance and premise control. When you're doing just planning, right? You're not implementing now, you're just sitting and planning your strategy. You can use 2 kinds of controls, strategic surveillance and premise control, because they're about analyzing the industry, analyzing the trends, analyzing what is happening around. So during planning stage also, you can use those. But when you're implementing the strategy, you can use all 4. You can use all 4. You will also use implementation control. You will also use special alert control, right? You can also use premise control. You can also use strategic surveillance. But implementation control and special alert control will only come when you are actually implementing the strategy, right? They will not come at strategy formulation stage. This is what you have to understand. Implementation control and special alert control will not come at strategy formulation stage, but only come at strategy implementation stage. But strategic surveillance and premise control are there constantly at all times. They are constantly there at all times. Right? Simple, because implementation and special alert will only happen when you're actually implementing, Only then this will happen. Otherwise, it will not. Right? Simple. So implementation and special alert control will only happen at strategy implementation stage, while premise and strategic surveillance will be there constantly. Okay. Strategy audit. Let us talk about strategy audit. We all know what audit is. But how do you audit a strategy? Okay. Now, strategy audit is a concept that helps you to identify the need to adjust the existing business strategies and plans, right? Strategy audit helps you identify whether you need to change your existing plans or you are good to go with your existing plans. Strategy audit helps you identify whether you need to change your existing plans or you're good to go with your existing plans and strategy, right? Okay. It is a periodic review and evaluation, just like audit. It is a periodic review. You do not do that constantly, but it is a periodic review and evaluation of areas affected by operation of strategic management process within an organization. Now, what are the core questions that are addressed by strategic audit? What is strategic audit solving? It is saying how well is the current strategy working? Simple audit questions. क्या जो हम अभी कर रहे हैं, is it the right thing? Is it the right way of doing it? Right? How well is the current strategy working? Is it working in the right way? how well will the current strategy be working in future? Going concern. You remember going concern? Similarly, how well will the current strategy be working in future? How can this be evaluated in present and future? Right? How can this be evaluated in present and future? Probably this is strategic control part. Is it measurable? Strategy audit will also check. It is an evaluation. It is just there to evaluate, to see whether the current strategy is working. Will it work in the future? Is it actually measurable in present and will it be measurable in future? How urgent is there a need to change the strategy? Do you need to change the strategy? If yes, how urgently you should change? That is what strategic audit or strategy audit does, right? That is what strategic audit does. Right. The strategy audit is done by who? We'll come to that. It's done internally majority of times. It's done internally by the organization majority of times, because if you remember, strategy is most of the time secret, right? Because it can get revealed to the competition, right? It can get revealed to the competitors. Thus, majority of times it is done internally. But why is the arrow of strategic surveillance starts to come down? It's just that saying that your surveillance reduces, right? It says during formulation you do a lot of strategic surveillance, and in the end you do more of implementation control and you do more of your special alert control and you do less of strategic surveillance. That is why the arrow comes down in that graph, right? Okay, 4 questions for strategy audit explains or helps to solve. Now, it is an excellent platform for discussion of the top management, right? Identifies the need to adjust. Simple. Strategy audit is an excellent platform for discussion of top management, because top management का job ही यही है. Because the top management is concerned with this. This is their job. How well is the current strategy working? How well this strategy work in the future? How can we evaluate this in present and future? Is there a need to change? If we have to change, how urgently we should change? That is why it is an excellent platform for discussion with the top management, right? Okay. 3 basic activities, just like audit, strategy audit has 3 basic activities. You examine, you compare, and you take corrective actions. You examine financials ठीक बन रहे हैं या नहीं. You compare, right? How do you know ठीक बन रहे हैं? Because that is a particular standard. There is an expected standard. Schedule 3 के हिसाब से you have to do that. As per the NDS, as per the IFRS, you have to do that. You compare and see whether they're in line, and then you take corrective actions. If not, you give a report that tells this is what you should change. These are the corrective actions you should take. Similarly, strategy audit, you examine, you compare, and you take corrective actions. Super simple. Examine, compare, take corrective actions. Strategy audit, 3 basic activities. You compare, you examine, you compare, and you take corrective actions. Simple, right? Let us move. These are very simple slides. Probably wherein we're talking about strategy audit. Strategy audit is about analyzing, evaluating and finding answers to 4 questions. Current strategy sahi hai ya nahi? Will it work in the future? How do I evaluate the present and future? And is there a need to change the strategy, right? And how do you do that? You do that by examining, comparing, and taking corrective actions. Okay. Why is it needed? Right? It is needed under the following conditions, right? Now, why is probably we know why audit is needed, but when is it needed? right? This particular slide tells you when is strategy audit needed. When is strategy audit needed? This particular slide is telling you when is strategy audit needed. When the strategy is not producing desired results, when the objectives of the strategy are not being accomplished, when a major change takes place in the environment, and when the top management plans to fine-tune existing strategy or introduce new strategy, and to ensure the strategy is in tune with the subtle internal and external changes that may occur since the formulation of strategies. When do I need strategy audit? One, when my current strategy is a flop. Two, when my objectives are not getting achieved. Three, when there is a major change in the environment. Four, when the top management wants to check, right, or fine-tune the strategy or introduce a new strategy, or to ensure that the strategy which is already working, it is doing good, whether it is able to align with the small changes that are happening, that have happened since the formulation of strategy, like some managers changed or some people came into the picture, some product changed, there was a small new product introduced, right? Is my current strategy able to align that, is able to absorb these changes? That is also one time when strategy audit is needed. That is also one of the times when a strategy audit is needed, right? So 4 times when a strategy audit is needed is: first, your current strategy is not producing desired outcomes, your objectives are not being accomplished, a major change has happened in the external environment, or the top management wants to fine-tune or bring in a new strategy, or they just want to check the small changes that have happened since the first strategy was formulated, whether the existing strategy is able to absorb that or not. Okay. Any questions so far? Aditya, we will have to check on that. I'm not sure. What subject do you want to cover? Do let us know. Any questions so far? Wonderful. That I will wait for that, Aditya. We'll wait for that. So best of luck, and I hope we'll see that happening. Who will control the management? Management is probably like the CEO, CFOs. They are the owners. They are the people who are working for a particular owner, right? So they are the people who have responsibilities, right? That is why who will control them is probably, if that would have happened, none of the businesses would fail, right? So it is the job of the management to control everything. Who controls the management is a tricky question, right? Management controls itself. Great. Okay, I'll move on to the slide that's on the screen now. So here we have a few criterias. We have a few criterias by Richard Rumelt, right? Richard Rumelt has certain criterias for strategic audit, right? He says that when you do strategy audit, you should check these 4 things. He says, when you do strategy audit, you should check 4 things. Mr. Richard Rumelt has 4 criterias that you should check when you do strategy audit. The first one is that the strategy is consistent with policies, right? That means Managerial problems continue, success for one department is failure for another, and policy problems and issue continue. What does this mean? Your strategic consistency with your policies. That is what we are saying. Now, I'll come to an example. Okay. Now, your strategy is that you want to make a very innovative company. Your strategy is that there should be a lot of innovation in your company, be it anything. If someone is a chartered accountant, they should innovate the ways of finding solutions to your profitability problems. Someone is an engineer in your company, they should be finding ways out to reduce the cost from manufacturing. Right? So you want your company to be very innovative. That is your strategy. But your HR policy is that people with higher skills probably have a disadvantage in terms of pay, because what you say is, we will pay or we will train the lower people more, and we'll have to spend a lot of money on our junior people, and we will take that money from the pay of senior people, and they will have to train these people, right? Now, the policy, look at the policy. The policy is that the senior skilled people who have to actually innovate, and your strategy is about innovation, they're spending time on training the juniors rather than innovating, right? Your policy is not in line with your strategy. Your policy is not in line with your strategy. Now, strategy audit, this is one criteria that Richard Rummel said, that your strategy should be consistent with your policy. Your strategy should be in line, should be in the same manner, in the same direction of your policies. All your policies should match with your strategy, right? If there is a conflict, that means it's time to change your strategy or your policy, right? Second thing he said is consonance. Consonance means examine individual trends and their interactions. That means if there are things that are changing, you have to see that your strategy also changes with that. If a lot of people are moving out of your organization, you have to examine what is going wrong in the strategy. There should be a consonance. That means there should be a linkage, there should be a combination, there should be a relation between the trends and your strategy. It should not be your strategy is going in another direction and the trend of the organization is going in another direction, right? Probably you want to be the youngest company and you see that the young people are not staying in your company. So you need to change your strategy. You need to change your strategy, right? That is what your strategy should be in consonance. You look at the trends, look at what is happening in the organization, then plan your strategy. And that is what you have to check in strategy audit. That is what you have to check in strategy audit. Number 3, feasibility. Feasibility. Neither overtax available resources nor create unsolvable sub-problems, right? Do not overtax your available resources. If your strategy is overusing your resources, that also is to be checked in strategy audit. That also is to be checked in strategy audit as per Richard Rummel, that you are effectively using your resources, you are not overusing them or you are underusing them. You have to use them at the most effective manner. That is one of the criteria to check in strategy audit as per Richard Rummel. The fourth criteria is the strategy should provide competitive advantage, right? Either in the resource or the skill or the position. The strategy that you are actually implementing or formulating should provide competitive advantage. Otherwise, it's not a good strategy. It is time to change your strategy. That is the fourth criteria as per Richard Rummel. That your strategy, your corporate strategy, your strategy should actually provide competitive advantage to you. And that is what is to be checked in strategy audit as per Richard. 4 criteria: strategic consistency with policies, consonance, combination in terms of your interactions of strategy with the trends. What is actually happening in the organization should match with your strategy, right? Third, feasibility. Do not overuse or underuse the resources. Use it at the most effective, efficient manner. 4, Your strategy should create a competitive advantage. Otherwise, change the strategy. Right? 4 criteria by Richard Rumelt. Okay. One of the statements here is that strategy evaluation is more difficult today. Why? It is difficult today as compared to earlier times. Why? Because the environment is more complex. More population, more companies, more opportunities, more available opportunities on internet, easier access to internet, right? Technology is changing. It has become a lot more complex. And the rapid rate of obsolescence of your best plan. This means end, right? Ending. Your existing plans, your existing strategies quickly end because there is change. Whatever you plan is already done or is no longer existing. Right? That is what happens in environment. Probably if I think I will create an app wherein I will only sell green vegetables, probably there will be an app doing that already. So the rapid rate of your ideas, your formulations, your strategies becoming zero is very quick. Right? That is why it has become very difficult to do strategy audit. Right. Therefore, in audit strategy, organization should examine the nature of positional advantage associated with a given strategy. Rather than understanding the environment, it should actually talk its position with its competitors. Simply, this statement says that your strategy audit should be more concerned about your position in terms of your competition rather than the industry or rather than what is happening in the environment, whether this business is feasible or not, whether you should continue the business or not. It should be more concerned about how are you in terms of the competition, your positional advantages, what is you can do better and what is you can learn from others. That is what strategy audit is all about, right? Okay, so before I go into business process re-engineering, I think we will cover this in the next session only, probably 30-35 minutes on chapter 8, and then we should be able to complete chapter 8, right? And we will do those questions. We'll take up exam questions as well. I'll bring in a few questions. We'll quickly do questions. We'll not spend much time on finding answers. Probably we'll understand the concepts more when we do answers. But we'll continue from business process re-engineering in the next session. I think otherwise there will be an overload of concepts today. But till then, we still have 3-4 minutes left for 8:30, right? So any doubts, any questions, any thought, anything, I would be happy to take that up. Or if it's clear, if everything is clear, that also helps if you write that down. Any questions, any thoughts that come to your mind? Thanks, Anushka. Great weekend to you as well. Probably go out somewhere wearing a mask, but try to stay home as much as possible. If not, wear a mask and go. Probably we'll complete everything in next 30-35 minutes in next session, and then we'll go to the revision and questions and some examination tips as you would like. That's all that, Anushka. It's good to be connected, right? Wonderful, wonderful. If it helps, everything is clear. That really gives me confidence. Is it compulsory to conduct strategic audit? Nakul, you're missing a concept. You have to do strategy audit when any of the 4 things happen, right? It is not compulsory. It is not mandatory, but it is required when Any of these four things happen, right? That is when you need strategy audit. That is when you need strategy. It's not mandatory, but there are specific times when you need it, and this is there on the screen. Great. So we'll talk about like what I do and how you can also plan in furthering your career in this particular course in the next session. We'll take 5-10 minutes on that. If not 10, at least 5, and then probably I'll answer those questions as well. Like what happens once you become a chartered accountant, right? Okay, so strategy management is second level activity like operational vision and management level business strategy. See, strategy management is second level activity, not particularly because so what happens is strategy happens at each level, right? Strategy happens at each level. Functional strategy, business level strategy, corporate level strategy. Chapter number 3, 4, 5. We studied strategy at all the three levels, right? We studied strategizing at all the three levels. So strategy is happening at every level. Thanks, Anshana. Thanks. Good to see that you guys are liking the PPT. Very soon, Abhishek, very soon. I'm planning to do something very soon, right? All right, so we are at 8:30. So we'll take up all the questions and all the doubts and start from DPR, Business Process Engineering, from the next session. Till then, take care of yourself and I'll see you next time. Right? Thank you. Anji.